Man, I mean, Mike, we live in interesting times. And, the fact that Messi is taking his talents to South Beach, that's huge. It is huge, as you mentioned, for Inter Miami, the MLS team there, for MLS in terms of its continued expansion and growth. And then, from a soccer perspective, and I guess a cultural perspective, this is arguably the greatest player of all time. This is also a player who's only 6 months removed from winning the World Cup with Argentina, coming from PSG. A player who had, if rumors are to be believed, an offer for 3 years and $1.5 billion from Saudi Arabia, who opted to come to the United States for him and his family. So this is all good stuff. I don't think it's possible for a human to paint this as a negative. I suppose an American human or someone that loves MLS like I do. This is all good stuff. There will be challenges on and off the field, but the fact is, we won. Messi is coming to the United States. He is coming to Major League Soccer. This is where he picked for him and his family. And, let the fireworks begin.
Yeah, I have so many questions. Because I'm curious about what this means for Messi too, Alexi. But from the standpoint of the MLS, we've seen superstars before come over, obviously, and now the guy who I guess is his boss, David Beckham, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Wayne Rooney as well. Is this just another one of these international players coming over? Or is this different? I mean, it to me, it feels different. Those guys, great. Messi, different level, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's, like I said, arguably the greatest player of all time. We do have a comp back in the 70s when Pele came to the NASL.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting to me, you mentioned another comp in Beckham or Zlatan. Messi's stardom and his legend are specifically, and let's be honest, only relative to what he has done on the field. Beckham had all the off-field part and the celebrity wife and all that kind of stuff. Messi has always let his play do his talking. He is not a big, bold, arrogant type of personality like Zlatan. He doesn't, he's not out and about in a social manner in the way that others are. So this is a different signing. However, Messi is also coming to a landscape, as you know, that has changed fundamentally. What soccer is in the United States is very, very different than back in the aughts when David Beckham came, and obviously back, when the league started in '96, or back in the '70s when Pele came. But he can have the same effect. And ultimately, this is just about getting more people. This is a battle for hearts and minds, and Messi brings more people into the soccer tent. They're not all going to stay, but many of them will. And that's ultimately where I find this wonderful, is that, I love this game, and we have soccer people in the United States, and America is a soccer country, but I want more people to come in. And that's what this does, because there are a lot of people that are curious, a lot of people that, to be quite honest, until yesterday, there's a lot of people that hadn't heard a whole lot this year about Major League Soccer.
Right.
And this changed overnight. You see the incredible numbers, and that's where the power is, whether it's, the social media numbers and just the massive growth there, the numbers that are going to, from ticketing in games that people don't even know if Messi's going to participate in, but as long as Inter Miami's there, people are buying tickets. It's just nuts.
Yeah, we did a story today, Alexi, of the ticket, the price just to get into the building. It was like $15, goes up to something like $230 just to get in the building. And like you said, for games that they don't even know if Messi is going to play. You've got the social media pages going from, say, 1 million followers to 5 million plus followers. I mean, I've never seen impact like this overnight. I mean, is it fair to say, is this the biggest thing that's ever happened to the MLS?
I mean, David Beckham, as we said, was a little bit different and it was, not before social media, but certainly not what social media can now do,
Right.
and, extrapolate it out over those years and what this is. I do think that, as I said, Messi is coming into a landscape that's very different. We're 3 years away from the World Cup that we're going to host in the United States with our friends to the North Canada and our friends to the South Mexico. So the culture and the climate is very different than even 10, 20 years ago. He's going to come in, and the interesting thing for me from a competitive standpoint now is Messi's going to, for the first time in his career, we are going to see Messi play for a team that is not the elite super club,
Right.
and in a league that is built on manufactured parity where everybody has a chance. We've never seen Messi in that type of environment. It's going to be very interesting. He's always been, in that incubator and that warm cocoon of Barcelona for so long, and then even PSG. So we're going to see him in a very different environment and maybe a very different light when he steps on the field and that whistle blows.
Do you expect that he will be head and shoulders above the rest of the players, or the majority of the players in the MLS? I mean, is he going to dominate? Understanding it's a team game and you can only do so much, but will he be substantially better than everybody else, Alexi?
I think you will see moments of magic, but the reality is that unless they do some major upgrading from an Inter Miami perspective, they're not going to surround him. I'm not even talking about surrounding him with the elites and super clubs that he's played at. I'm just surrounding him with something that's going to make him competitive. Now, the interesting thing also is that over the last couple of years, he has changed like anybody changes their game, whether it's LeBron or anybody else, you're going to change as you get older. And he has started to be much more selective in terms of when and how he runs. Now, that's okay when you have a lot of the ball and you are playing in the best team and you have great players around you.
Right.
But it could at times get frustrating for him, both on and off the field. With I will say this: one of the things that he said when he announced this was, for his family, he wants to have a much more reserved and private and quiet type of existence. It's not like Messi's walking down to the 7-Eleven and getting a Slurpee and nobody's recognized him. He's one of the most recognizable people in the world. So I don't think that he's going to have the leisure and the alleviation of that type of pressure. And as a matter of fact, we might see him in a situation that we've never seen him before, where he's playing for a team that is actually struggling just to be competitive.
Why is he doing this? Obviously, being famous in America, money to be made. What's his motivation, if you could get in his head, Alexi?
Well, there is a real kind of romantic part of this story, because as we mentioned, billions of dollars on offer from Saudi Arabia, and he picked the U.S., and they have had to be very creative in cobbling together this really unique deal for him with Adidas and with Apple, and obviously with Inter Miami and everybody, and all the owners too, because everybody's going to everyone's going to benefit. But
right.
I don't know ultimately how this looks from a Messi perspective, and he has property in Miami and all that. So he has a relationship with the United States. But as I said, I think there's a romance that he wants to go someplace and do something a little bit different. And I will say this, in this evergreen argument over the years that has existed between Messi and Ronaldo, I actually had it switched. I thought Ronaldo would take this type of path, given, much more.
He was more like his personality, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's much more, outgoing and much more about his brand and all that. And I thought Messi would just kind of, go kind of off and make the money in Saudi Arabia. So credit to Messi, because this puts on his plate opportunities, but it also puts on challenges that he may never have seen. And Inter Miami is going to have to deal with the same thing that we dealt with back in the day when we brought Beckham to the Galaxy, and whether it's media and security and travel, and then, just the actual playing on the field and surrounding him with better players, because this team is not very good right now.
Last one for you, Alexi. And we talked about there have been great players who have come over before. Do you think this sort of supercharges that pipeline? Do you see now even more top players come over to America, come over to the MLS?
Well, MLS and Inter Miami in particular now has an incredible messenger with, they don't have Rolodexes anymore, but, whatever, contacts. So the fact that he can call up all of these players, the fact that he can lure, and we're already seeing incredible names now being linked to coming to Inter Miami. I was just saying earlier that it's almost as if they are in the process of potentially creating this MLS Super Club Death Star. And the hate watching is going to be absolutely epic. And it's going to fire up and light a fire under other teams. Because I know if I was on another team, a less sexy team, for example, and Miami was doing all of this, and one of the greatest ever to play is there, I would want to kick his ass. And so that's a good thing. So I'm here for that. That's a good thing from a competitive perspective. And who knows? There's the business part of it too, because MLS just signed with Apple, and this streaming service, it's kind of novel. They're trying to see around the corner. And maybe this is one of the few things that you can put out there that has the value and the power to drive people to find it on Apple, to migrate over there, and obviously to subscribe, and that's what they're looking for. So there's all sorts of business implications, but ultimately this is a wonderful day, I think, for soccer. This is a wonderful time for MLS, I guess for America in general, because this is a pretty cool thing to see.
Can I hit you one bonus one?
Yeah, sure.
I know I said one more. You talked about all of those, maybe the things you don't think about, the security, all of that stuff that goes into this, that the average fan is not even going to enter their minds. What's the advice as a guy who did oversee Beckham coming in? What do you tell the president of the club, or the owner of the club? What do you say to those guys? What's the advice?
Well, I already texted some of the guys that I know over there, and I said, listen, enjoy the ride, but they are in for a ride, and they're coming at it at a different time. And I think MLS, and even though Inter Miami is still a relatively young team, I think they're much more prepared and there's much more history. But this is what I will say, and it's the most difficult thing to do, because you have this machine that is Messi, and in many ways it is a brand that is many times bigger than the actual team. To the extent that you can, you have to guard against making Messi bigger than Inter Miami, because Messi will come and go. He might have incredible impact, right, but the decisions that you make from a long-term perspective are very, very important. And I know it's difficult. It's very difficult, but you're going to have to pick and choose when to fight and when to fight for the team being the most important thing going forward. And that's not always going to be easy, but if you do it, I think in the long term, you will be it will be more beneficial, and you will maximize what Messi can bring. But if he becomes more important and bigger than the actual team, which is certainly possible, that could be problematic on and off the field.